Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today, as every day, I was spending my entire afternoon just staring at a wall, continuously repeating, Nolan, Nolan, it's me. And before you ask, yes, it was a white wall. Racist. But then it came to me. We all know that this casting for the Odyssey is absolute nonsense. I mean, we have done this to death. But there is one thing that just clicked in my head. You know who's missing here? Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra. Let me explain. We all know the Odyssey happens after the siege of Troy. And of course, if I were to tell you, name a female character from the story, everyone is going to say Helen of Troy. Or at this point, Eleni tis Trias. And for those who are going to get mad in the comments, fine, you win. Eleni tis Spartis. Are you happy now? And who's playing that role? Obviously, we all know, Lupita. But then there is the other character, Clytemnestra, or Clytemnestra, who is her sister. To be more specific, in Greek mythology, Clytemnestra is the queen of Mycenae and sister of Helen of Sparta. And who's playing Clytemnestra? Lupita is playing Clytemnestra, even though they didn't put it here. Lupita is playing Clytemnestra. So, think about it for a second. At this point, a few questions come naturally, spontaneously, if you will. In the original story, are Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra twin sisters? No. So, of course, this is once again a reimagining, a transformation, a detachment from what Homer wrote. Today is Lupita Day, Lupita. Tomorrow could be Spanakopita. You know what? I should make a little video on how to pronounce all of these mythological names and the names in modern Greek. I think that could be kind of fun, but I would have to do it for the second channel. So we can do all of them. Agamemnonas, Menelaos, and all the rest. That would be great. Maybe for another day. Now, I don't know why he decided that was a great idea. I don't know why any of this, in the twisted, nonsensical, nihilistic mind of Nolan, makes sense. I don't know how any of this makes sense in his head. But then I thought about it. This is crazy. No, really think about it. Who is... Shut up. Shh. Think about it. Who's Helen of Troy? Right. She's the most beautiful woman on Earth. Let's take a moment to appreciate that you cannot logically say that Helen of Troy was the most beautiful woman. So let's take a moment to appreciate that you cannot logically say that Helen of Troy was the most beautiful woman in the world if she had a freaking twin sister. Because to be the most beautiful woman in the world means no one else is as beautiful as you are. In the entire planet, never mind the next town. City-state. This is the stupidest thing I've ever... Of course, that's what I said on my ex. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna post this. And bro, everyone, it's unbelievable. X, you know how I always say that... Skynet, I was about to say. You know how I always say how Blue Sky is a circle of hell with all the demon spawns ready to vomit poison on you? That's Blue Sky, alright? But X, the level of pedantry of people, people will disagree. If I say, look at my phone, they will say, technically it's a smartphone, actually. Hey, look at my white headphone. Are you sure that that's actually white? In that sense of hashtag FFFFFF, RGB 255, because to me it looks more like a cotton, which is hashtag FBFBF9. In other words, anything you say, there will be a host of pedants coming to nitpick everything you said. And you know, I like pedantry. When you're right. But what have we got here? Okay, so... Twin sister does not mean identical twin sisters, and even if it was, then maybe one of them has horrible scars with the other doesn't. There are other factors at play. Could be fraternal twins, not identical. Not all twins are identical, pure Metatron. Using such an obvious invalid criticism distracts from the many valid ones that you could make and damages your credibility. To be fair, two pairs of fraternal... Squizzygotic twins that hatch from eggs is a hard concept for anyone with small imagination. Maybe they were not identical twins. Maybe they are fraternal twins. They are half-sisters and both are twins for their brothers. They are not twin sisters to each other, though. I'm not sure how it was in the original telling. Even identical twins look different, though slight. Anyone who knows some knows this. One in the pair I knew was more handsome, and ladies responded to it. I love it because not only they have to say something that is completely out of place here, because, you know, I'll get to it. I mean, you already know, but whatever. No, they even have to shame you for it. You don't even know. Could be maternal twins and have an ugly sister. Even identical twins don't look completely alike anyways. Maybe Helen was better at makeup than her sister. Fraternal twin and fraternal twins. You don't even know what it is. This exact. Be exact. Be specific. If she had an identical twin sister, she could and did have a fraternal twin sister. Maybe it was a fraternal twin. I really like it. Now, let's not say. How do you know identical twins? Maybe Helen. Shut up. Zitti. Statevi zitti. Zitti. Stai zitto. Zitti. Shh. Okay. I responded to quite a few. I did respond. Maybe next time, before jumping onto your little keyboard, how about you check the I'm screaming. How about you check what I'm talking about? I mentioned Nolan in my post. Nolan. I get it. I know that not every twin looks identical. But you know who's gonna look identical? F***ing Lupita Nyong'o to herself. Because she's going to play both. Same actress, same human, okay? And before you say, but maybe they didn't know. Of course they didn't know. Otherwise, I suppose maybe. Other than, again, I kind of made it obvious in the thing, but it doesn't matter. We have known this since May. The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan confirmed Lupita Nyong'o's playing two roles. Nolan explained why the gods aren't shown as Nyong'o's dual roles are confirmed, along with the A-list cast's budget accommodations. Lupita Nyong'o will play two roles in Christopher Nolan's upcoming epic adventure, The Odyssey, confirming online speculation Nyong'o plays Helen of Troy, aka Helen of Congo, the most beautiful woman in the world who's married to Menelaus, and gets blamed for starting a war after she's spirited away by a prince. The Oscar winner also plays Helen's sister, Clytemnestra, who is married to Menelaus' brother Agamemnonas. I love saying it that way. What do you want from me? Sue me! Since Nolan is not giving space to the Greeks, at least I'm going to give space to their language. The cast, well, butchering it, I suppose, in the process, but hey, I'm trying. The casting was confirmed in a new Time profile of Nolan, which also revealed why the Oppenheimer director declined to cast actors to play the gods of Mount Olympus in a traditional way in his adaptation of the mythic tale. Yeah. Not just the gods. Everything is not played in the tradition. There's nothing about it. They hate tradition. Gods of Mount Olympus in a traditional way in his adaptation of the mythic tale has nothing to do with it anymore. Nolan says he considered the idea. Yeah, for sure. I'm sure sleepless nights, guys. Sleepless nights. The guy was like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna defy the gods. That's what I'm gonna do. Defy the gods. Before the pedants joined the room. How do you know that's actually what he meant? It's here. It's on the freaking poster. Defy the gods. So, thank you, pedant. Goodness gracious. How do you know it's actually what he wants to do? You don't know that. You don't know that. Nah. I'm losing my mind. He considered the idea, then decided to mainly give the gods a presence through nature and his character's beliefs. Fantastic. So, it's nothing to do with the story once again. I open quotes, let's see what the clown says. I became more interested in the idea that to people in that period, evidence of gods was everywhere. Why do they have to make shit up? Oh my gosh. The idea of the invisible gods is the Roman approach, by the way. Not all Romans. Some were still very connected to the original Greek idea of the physicality of the gods. Very tangible in ancient Greek religion. But if you really want to go into the idea of, well, the gods are an invisible force, well, that's more like the Romans. Meaning that, again, there were some Romans that believed in the idea of the invisible power of the gods rather than something as human and physical as it was for the Greeks. He's a clown, but it's not like he even knows. Because, of course, when you compare Roman gods and Greek gods is not just a name swap. It's not just a name swap. There are differences. Originally, even though Neptunus and Poseidonas, or Poseidon, Neptune and Poseidon, they're both the god of the sea and the earthquakes. For some reasons, people forget that. Earthquakes under the sea. Seaquakes? Whatever. And among his symbols, there is also the horse, which connects to the Trojan horse, by the way. It's all connected. But in Rome, initially, Neptunus, at least its original form, was god of sources of water, not necessarily the sea. He acquires that as one of the characteristics, as they do marry the two religious beliefs and systems. But there are differences between Minerva and Athena and the different gods. They're not just name swaps, but also a general approach to how the gods operate tends to be different if we read the classics between the Romans and the Greeks. Now, given, again, when we read the classics, when we read philosophers, that doesn't necessarily represent the way people thought in everyday life. If you went to talk to the fisherman, or if you went to talk to a farmer and you asked what he believed about the gods, it doesn't necessarily reflect that. Just like today, modern elites or even religious people, they are leaders, world leaders. They have an opinion, they have an idea, but that doesn't always reflect the people. But it's just to give an idea that if you really wanted this idea of, well, the gods are just an invisible force of nature, it neither would think that, but maybe would be a little closer to how some writers in ancient Rome expressed their opinions when it comes to the gods. Definitely not the Greeks, or mainstream Greek position. The wonderful thing about cinema, and IMAX, of course, is going to, man, this guy is sexually attracted to IMAX at this point. I'm convinced. It's a kink. In particular, is that you can take an audience to a place of immersion, feeling close to events like storms, turbulent seas, high winds. You want the audience to be on the boat with them, fearing the ocean, fearing the wrath of Poseidon, the way the characters do. That, to me, is so much more powerful than an individual image you can have of a god. Because you're not a Greek. Not an ancient Greek, I mean. So again, you are, what you're doing is that in order to, once again, make this relatable to the audience today, you're removing the original perspective and you're morphing it. But then again, what's so weird about, of course he's going to do it with religion of the period as well. He's not trying to take you to a journey through time, which is what I would love to see. Because at the end of the day, remember that the past is a foreign nation. In fact, a foreign world. They speak a different language, they do things differently there, and in the world looks completely different. So going to the past, even if you remain in the same country, but you go to the past a couple of thousand years, it would feel like going to an entirely different world. And while there still are connections, of course, strong connections in fact, still, I think to me, it would be so much better to represent things as closely as possible. It requires more work, it requires experts, of course, and consultations, sacrifice, but it would be beautiful, because there are so many things that we as modern people don't get. Yeah, I get it. We as modern people can understand, oh, the storm, my gosh, they don't want to die and drown. Great. Yeah, I guess everyone can relate that, even if we go back to the freaking Paleolithic and they were trying to put together the first wooden rafts, whatever the heck. But isn't it more beautiful instead to utilize this as a way to teach you something that people otherwise don't see? And I've mentioned this already. I have a dedicated video, but I've talked about, for instance, when the Romans looked at gladiators, they didn't see things the way we do, because they caught some references and connections that were obvious in their culture that they're not obvious to us. For instance, Roman gladiators, specifically the gladiatorial class called retiarius, aka this Muppet here. I would say it's quite safe to say that among all the different types of gladiator classes, the secutor, the murmillo, the traex, the oplomachus, the retiarius is the fancy one, because we see this very improbable fighter. I mean, he's lightly armored, he's got the net, he's got the trident. In fact, let's have a look at the trident. Sorry to interrupt you, Metatron, but I would like to say, note that in iconography, the tridents appear to have the same length. I don't really see a longer spike in the middle, so that could be an interesting version to recreate. I mean, look at this. They look identical in iconography. Anyway, sorry, Metatron, to interrupt you. Let's go. The meta. This is meta. There is a reason why the trident was given together with the net to this specific fighter. And in fact, no, there are 3 reasons. So let's go. Gladiatorial combat is deep and multi-layered. The reality of fact is that as modern people, whenever we look at the retiarius, for example, fighting the murmillo, the muscular big gladiator that is also carrying the Roman scutum, and the gladius, we might just focus on the way they fight and the weapons that they're using, but we might miss out on what an ancient Roman would have seen, the sort of analogies that were connected to this specific figure and weapon. First, there is the physical allegory. So, the retiarius is clearly the fisherman. He's got the net, he's got the trident. This is rather obvious, but what might not be is that the murmillo is the fish. I agree with myself. The helmet that the Murmillo class is usually wearing is a representation of a specific type of fish that in Latin was called murena, which means moray, eel. These ones here. So the whole representation that we are seeing there is that the Murmillo is a beast of nature, a sea monster that is hiding behind the rocks, aka the scutum, that the fisherman needs to try and hit in order to get him out. In other words, in the eyes of an ancient Roman, this battle between the trident-wielding fisherman and this horrible sea creature was symbolic and entertaining in their way, as that they could apply their imagination to what they were seeing. After all, these are gladiatorial games. All of this I would like to underline again. I agree with myself. Excellent work, Metatron. But I wanted to say that all of this would be obvious to the ancient Romans. Obvious. They would be like, oh, the Murena has entered, the Murmillo is in, and then he comes in, and then he goes for the monstrous attack against the poor fisherman who is struggling to stay alive and fight the forces of nature. All of this was obvious to a Roman. And it's a bit like when we watch something, and because it's based on our own mythology and ideas and religions and cultures and philosophy and whatever you want to put in it, then it's obvious to us. Well, this was obvious to them. This was obvious to them. Yeah. But let's go deeper. In the eyes of, after all, these are gladiatorial games. But let's go deeper. In the eyes of an ancient Roman, the trident-wielding combatant is also a representation of the god Neptunus, Neptune, who, as we all know, is the Roman god of the ocean. Or is he? Oftentimes when we think of the Roman gods and the Greek gods, we imagine that they are basically the same gods, it's just different names. But the reality is that they don't always overlap perfectly. And even though sometimes when we look at this case by case, some differences may be marginal, other times they are quite substantial. Now, when it comes to specifically the Greek version, so Poseidon, or as they say in modern Greek, Poseidonas, yes, he's the Greek god of the sea. But when it comes to Neptunus, so Neptune, initially he wasn't. Oh, and he wasn't even Roman, because the Romans got it from the Etruscans. So the Etruscans create the deity, the Romans adapt it, but in its early form, he was the god of the spring waters, the rivers, and the lakes. And only this is actually a misconception that people have, and it's very simplistic. When you hear people saying, oh yeah, the Roman gods are just the same as the Greek gods with Roman names, they haven't really looked into it. And I'm not even saying they haven't looked deeply into it, they haven't looked at all. Because if you do, you'll notice that, yeah, as I say, there's connection to the Etruscans, there is syncretism, don't get me wrong, they do merge together at one point, but there will always be a difference, and the original versions are different too. Only later, as we have a little bit of a merging or a syncretism with the Greek Poseidonas, he also becomes the god of the sea. All of this according to George Dumzil, fantastic expert in comparative linguistics and mythology. Strongly suggest to read his work. But I digress. Initially we said that when the Romans, an ancient... What's new? Roman were to look at a gladiatorial combat, a fight between a retiarius and a murmillo, they would not just see two guys fighting each other, but they would see a fisherman fighting a massive fish. But when this gets deeper, and it also becomes its own symbolism of ancient Roman religion, what is the murmillo then? What is Neptune doing with the trident? Trying to kill a fish? No. According to Markus Junkelmann, German historian and experimental archaeologist, in this specific scenario, the Retiarius is Neptune. When he strikes the shield of the Murmillo, he is causing seismic shakes, also known in this specific context as underwater earthquakes, because do remember, the god Poseidon is not just the god of the seas, he's also the god of the earthquakes. All of this is impressive, but what it really helps us to understand is that yes, the trident might not be the best weapon that you could give a fighter in a gladiatorial context, but that's why I was responding to you earlier on, and we were like, yeah, we don't know if it's a great weapon design because it's not a weapon. designed to be effective. It's a weapon designed, or it's an implement that the Romans chose to give to this specific gladiator because it was summoning all of this. So that's what it was doing. But it is the perfect weapon to give to a fighter to impress the ancient Romans and make this game 10 times more interesting because of the stimulus that it would provide to the ancients' imagination. And as a final fun fact, in its initial version, the god Neptune did not have a trident. He had a bident, the two-pronged implement that we know ancient Romans were using to fish large fishes in the Po River. This is an image of Pluto because in Renaissance art they actually give the bident to Pluto. I'm done. Thank you. But hey, I guess I'm not the multimillionaire guy who, wow, he has such an amazing... In the piece star Anne Hathaway, who plays Penelope, the wife of Odysseus and queen of Ithaca, or Ithaki, revealed that the A-list cast stayed in modest accommodations to keep the film's estimated $250 million budget on the screen. I mean, good, I guess. Wow, for once they didn't live the opulent life of millionaires. For once. Oh, wow. Thank you for the sacrifice, cast. Appreciate. You've got to, and by the way, whatever they considered modest accommodations probably would have been, wow, this is amazing for me. But whatever, to each his own. You've got Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, and a slew of other very fine actors. Me, and we are all staying in budget accommodation on a small island in Sicily. Okay. Because there is no indulgent nonsense. Okay, she said. It's just about the work, and we are all so happy to be here. Well, to be honest, though, my island of Sicily is gorgeous, so even if you go to What to Him, where modest accommodations, it probably was great. The food was fantastic. The people were funny and interesting and fun and welcoming. So do remember that even modest accommodations, if you go to a nice place in Sicily like they did, which was the island, Lampedusa, I think they went, the scenery is going to be phenomenal. And that's going to be as luxurious as you can get because that's the work of a god. So there is that. And I would rather take beautiful scenery over a 5-star hotel, but that's just me. Nolan gave some insight into casting rapper Travis Scott, oh my gosh, as a bud in the film. I cast him because I wanted to nod towards the idea that this story has been handed down as oral poetry in the end and analogous to rap. What a clown. We've already debunked this, and my blood sugar is already going down while my blood pressure is going up. So you know what? I think I've read enough about this, but this is really the situation here. I just wanted you to think about it. How can you have the most beautiful woman on the planet whose beauty is unmatched and have a freaking identical twin sister played by the same actress? Just doesn't make sense. Just makes sense. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth.